Okay, so our next speaker is coming to us all the way from Israel. Her name is Shiri Ben Arzi, and she is a medical coach and the founder of the Medical Coaching Institute. She's a master certified coach with the International Coach Federation, and she has a vision to promote empowerment and patient-centered medicine practice. Today, she's going to empower us and help us to understand emotional intelligence in a medical crisis. Welcome, Shiri.
Thank you, Grant. It's wonderful to be here. What a pleasure. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence in the context of a medical crisis. So what does that mean? How we tap into that emotional intelligence while we're going through a health or medical crisis. And the thing about a health and a medical crisis is that they tend to be overwhelming. So let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of a medical crisis or a health crisis. And I'm going to say something about the definition or the distinction between the two. And then we're going to go into some tools and skills and tips that you can use. So first of all, how do we know if an event that we're going through that has to do with our health and has to do with our body, is it a medical crisis or a health crisis? Well, actually, guys, you decide. It's your body, it's your life. What does it feel like to you? Does it feel like a medical crisis or does it feel like a health crisis? So you get to name it because it's your life, it's your emotional intelligence, it's your body. No matter what you choose to call it, no matter the name, let's talk about some characteristics. So a health or a medical crisis has to do with something going significantly wrong with our health. And that means a few things. It means, first of all, there is a mega break of trust. Because if you think about it, our body is that basic primal container that we learn to trust unconditionally. I mean, we need to trust our body unconditionally if we want, as babies, to turn from lying on our backs to lying on our stomachs, and then to sitting up, and then to standing up, and from there, walking, skipping, climbing, running. We need that unconditional trust. So when a medical crisis or a health crisis come into a life, they usually create a disruption. It almost feels like the ceiling is just falling on our heads without asking for our permission. So there's a break of trust. If I cannot trust this vessel, my body, which is a part of me, which I have trusted unconditionally until now, if I cannot trust that body anymore, well, what can I trust? So you see the ripple effect of that trust, and that's pretty profound. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is survival mode. A medical crisis or a health crisis can be dangerous. You're fighting for your life, medically speaking. Okay, so you need to go through a lot of procedures. Some of them might be new, some of them are frightening, some of them are painful. You need to have these medical practitioners, this team. You don't know them, you're trusted, they're professionals. Okay, they have all the credentials and they're working in a hospital, but now they need to probe and touch and hurt you. You trust they have the best intention, but hey, we're going back to that trust issue. So everything is overwhelming. You might be dealing with some financial issues because you can't work anymore, or you're not working right now. It's going to take time until you get back to work. What about the family? What about the spouse? What about the body image? How am I going to look like? Who am I going to be? I have this story of who I am in the world and what I can do. What's going to happen after this? Who am I going to be then? What am I going to be able to do? Where is my place going to be in society, at home? So this kind of a structure, uh, this kind of a crisis tends to be a 360 crisis, meaning it touches every area in our lives. Our self-esteem, our emotions, our thinking strategies, our values, our relationships, our environment, everything, everything, everything. The thing is, that we want to be able to tap into that emotional intelligence for us to create those coping skills, those empowering perspectives that will give us the inner strength to work through this. Because sometimes a crisis like this can be an acute crisis. It has a short lifespan, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But sometimes we're dealing with something that might be a chronic crisis. It has a beginning and a middle and a middle, and we honestly don't know if or when this is going to end and how is it going to look like when it actually ends. What does that mean? And I'm talking about chronic illnesses. So there's a need to create a new normal. In order for me to create those coping skills and create that new normal, I have to tap into my resources, my emotional resources, my mental resources, and even my spiritual resources, whatever those might be for you. Spirituality can be connected to religion, but it can also be connected to the human spirit. So I want to share my slides with you because I wanted to give you some skills and tools to create that transition into a more resourceful state where you can tap into your emotional intelligence. So I'm going to be sharing my screen now. So imagine we have a current state, which is a state of crisis. And we talked about this crisis. This is a very dramatic crisis, a lot of fear and a lot of stress and sometimes lack of hope. It can even be have traumatic aspects to it. In any case, it's overwhelming. And we want to reach that state where we can tap into our emotional intelligence so we can create these powerful, empowering, sustainable coping strategies. And the question is, how do we do that? So if emotional intelligence has a lot of, is a lot about the awareness, how do we do that? What are the things that we need to do in order to reach that place? In a way, what is a bridge? Okay, I'm using the metaphor of a bridge like that right now. What is a bridge that can help me shift, okay, walk, move from my current state to a more resourceful state? And what I want to say is that bridge is called emotional agility. And this is what I'm going to focus on right now. Emotional agility is the doing that helps us connect to that emotional intelligence. It's an aspect within this vast concept of emotional intelligence. And emotional agility has a lot of skills, a lot of tools. And like I said, it's a lot about the doing. And we're going to talk about how do you do emotional agility now that will lead you to a place of tapping into your emotional intelligence and creating those coping strategies that really work for you and support you in this journey. So there's a foundation to this bridge. Let's talk about the foundation. The first thing that I want you to know is that we need, you and I, all of us, we need to change the way that we look and talk about emotions. We tend to make a distinction between positive emotions and negative emotions, and we want to move away from those bad, mean, negative emotions and really embrace those positive emotions. And what I want to say to you guys, life doesn't work like that. There aren't negative or positive emotions. There are emotions that do not feel good, they're not nice to feel, and other emotions are pretty lovely to feel. But they're all human emotions and they have a context to them. Okay, so the first doing of emotional agility is stepping away from that distinction. Stop judging your emotions. You deserve better than that. You have emotions, they're all part of the human experience, and they all have a context to them. Okay, so some emotions might feel nice, others might be difficult. Maybe there's some emotions that you don't like feeling. That's a place for exploration, but let's step away from judgment. That is the first principle, the first tool that we use. The second thing is that instead of making that distinction between negative and positive, remember I invited you to step away from that. I want to invite you to look at it as balanced emotions and imbalanced emotions. What does that mean? Well, let's take anger, for example. Okay? Anger is not a feel good emotion. Okay? We tend to judge it and say, oh, anger is a negative emotion. It's not negative, it's a human emotion. Okay? There's a lot of learning in anger. Anger teaches us things. Anger teaches us to set boundaries, to say no. Anger teaches us right from wrong. Anger, by the way, anger is an amazing motivator. Think about history. Think about the people that you know. How many people decided to stand up and make a change in their lives just because they had enough and they were pissed off? They were angry. Okay? So anger can be a motivator. It doesn't feel nice. It doesn't always feel nice physically because there's an embodiment to anger. But when anger is balanced, then I can ask myself, okay, what am I learning from this? In a way, I can step out and look at Shiri as if I'm standing on the top of a building or a terrace, okay, or a bridge. Looking at Shiri feeling that anger, I'm saying, okay, so what is the 2% truth about this anger? What do I want Shiri to learn about this anger? How do I want her to hold space for this anger, be with the anger, process the anger? Now that's a balanced emotion. When anger becomes imbalanced, it becomes rage. Think about rage. Rage is like a forest fire, it consumes us. There's no learning in rage, okay? We can't differentiate ourselves from our emotion, from our rage. We become our rage and we just burn everything down. Let me give you a few additional examples. One of them is fear. Okay, so fear is the balanced version. Anxiety is going to be the imbalanced version. So again, fear is not a negative emotion. It's just an emotion. We need to be afraid. If we're not afraid of things that might, put us in danger, then we might not survive. So we need fear for our survival. And fear also teaches us things. Fear will teach us to survive. It will teach us to be careful. It will teach us self-preservation. It will teach us to prioritize things. It will teach us to plan things. Fear is an amazing teacher. Okay, but when fear becomes imbalanced, it becomes anxiety. And anxiety just surrounds us, and it seems like there's no way out, and we're absolutely doomed, and we're going to die in about 5 seconds. That's of course not true, but that's the subjective experience. Another example, by the way, let's talk about happiness. Happiness is not a positive or a negative emotion. It's just an emotion. It really feels good. Does happiness have an imbalanced version? Yes, it does. It's called euphoria. And the thing about euphoria is that euphoria is disconnected from reality. So when we're disconnected from reality, we don't see reality for what it is, which means we might be in danger and not knowing. We might put ourselves in danger and might endanger others. We might make some really reckless decisions. So being in a euphoric state is actually pretty dangerous. So that's the second thing. Let's look at emotions and ask ourselves, is this a balanced emotion or is this an imbalanced emotion? How do I know? Can I step out of the situation, stand on that bridge, and look at myself down there, feeling that emotion, and then ask myself, what am I learning from this? If I cannot do that, then I'm in an imbalanced emotional state. Okay, and then the best thing I can do is use some grounding techniques. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. The third part of the foundation is understanding that in the context of a crisis, emotions are a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Remember, I told you a few seconds ago, every emotion has a context. Emotions do not exist outside our context. So if, for example, I am having a medical coaching session with a guy who's 36 years old, diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer, his anger is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation because it's normal to be angry. when you have stage 4 brain cancer. It's normal to be sad when you have stage 4 brain cancer. That's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. And that's one thing that I want you to carry with you. When you're going into that emotional reaction, look at the context. Because many times if you change the context, you reframe the context, you will see a shift in the emotional state. So, in a context of a crisis, do not judge yourself for being upset, for being sad, for crying, for being terrified, for being stressed, for losing hope. This is a crisis. It has a completely different set of rules to it. It's a different game. In the context of a crisis, all emotions are normal reactions to an abnormal situation. No judgment, okay? No negative or positive. Just ask yourself, am I able to learn something from this emotion? Because if not, then you're in an imbalanced state. And then you want to ground yourself. Last but not least, and this is so important, if there's one thing that I want to give you in this short talk is that you are human beings that have emotions. You are not your emotions. You are not your emotions. You have emotions. In that aspect, emotions are like internal behaviors. They can be changed. Okay? But when we see ourselves as creatures, as human beings that have emotions, then we create a separation between ourselves and our emotions. We are not our emotions. Which means we can negotiate our emotions, we can process them, we can change them, we can work with them. But we do not judge ourselves according to our emotions. If I am feeling overwhelmed and angry and I can't seem to focus because I'm also profoundly sad, that does not mean that I'm a weak human being. That doesn't mean that I'm an angry woman or a bitchy woman or a depressive woman or whatever. It doesn't say anything about me. It just says that at the moment in this context, I am feeling this emotion. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm going to repeat that, okay? And this moment, in this context, I am feeling this specific emotion. Nothing more, nothing less. So, let's talk about that crisis, that place of a medical or health crisis. What happens to us? So I mentioned a few of those characteristics, but now let's take it to that subjective human experience. And I love this acronym. It's called the crash state. And the C stands for contraction. And the contraction is on many levels. First of all, we usually feel it physically. When we're in a state of crisis, we will feel that contraction in our muscles. And that has to do with high levels of cortisol, the stress hormone in our system. So we will feel that contraction in our chest. Our breathing is going to become shallow, okay? Our muscles are going to become tight. So we have that physical contraction, but we also have a mental contraction. So our ability to kind of see the field is the area, our environment, okay, the situation. Usually when we're connected to our resources and we are relaxed, we can look at a situation and kind of see, 180, sometimes even 360, look at it from many angles. But in a crisis, our peripheral vision, so to speak, okay, contracts. So we tend to go into this tunnel vision. Okay, and that of course affects our ability to explore perspectives, our ability to tap into resources, our ability to look at things, from a different angle that connects to perspectives, but also our ability to tap into, situations in the past where maybe we've been through a similar thing and kind of ask ourselves, so what did I do there that actually worked for me? So we have that contraction. Okay, everything becomes tight and narrow. The R stands for reaction. We shift from a proactive state to a reactive state. Okay, so a proactive state has to do with initiating, stepping out, okay, initiating a response. When we're in a place of reaction, basically we're constantly responding to things that are coming to meet us. Okay, things that are invading our space, invading our environment, invading our human experience. Okay, there are things happening that we did not ask for. They did not ask our permission. We did not give them permission, and we find ourselves constantly reacting. So imagine being attacked, okay, from many angles and constantly reacting and pushing back and pushing back, pushing back. That's exhausting. Okay. The A stands for something that's called analysis paralysis. Analysis paralysis means that our ability to analyze a situation, okay, is absolutely paralyzed. So what happens when we analyze a situation? We look at it through many angles. We explore different ways, to play with it, different explanations. We might, run some simulations of cause and effect, try some strategies, and basically, come to a conclusion of what might be the best strategy or the best reaction. That's the ability to analyze a situation. We do that all the time. But in a state of crisis, in a crash state, our ability to analyze what just happened to me, what is going on, what are the resources available, my internal resources, but also my external resources. Who can I ask for help? What do I already know? The ability to analyze my past experience, all of that is paralyzed, meaning I have no access to it. The S stands for separation. The experience of separation is the experience of isolation, meaning that in a state of crisis, even though I might be in a room filled with people, my subjective experience is that I'm absolutely separated and isolated. I'm all alone. Sometimes to the extent where I might feel that nobody's seeing how desperate I am right now. Nobody's seeing that I'm in crisis. Nobody's seeing how terrified I'm feeling right now, that I'm feeling that I'm in survival mode. And if nobody can see me, nobody can help me. And if nobody can see me and nobody can help me, maybe they don't love me, maybe they don't care about me. That's separation. I'm no longer part of a group. I'm no longer part of the community. I'm all alone. And that's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So that experience of separation is a very frightening and stressful experience. And then we have the H, and the H stands for hurt and hate. So in a state of crisis, we feel hurt many times. First of all, there's a betrayal of the body, and that's hurtful because any experience of betrayal hurts us emotionally. Okay, so we have that emotional hurt. We might be hurt by other people. We might be disappointed. That might be connected to that separation experience. How come you're not seeing me? How come you're not there for me? Okay. And sometimes that will also shift into an experience of hate. I hate other people. I hate the world. I hate what's happening to me. I hate myself. That's the crash state. Okay. And that is a classic response to a health or medical crisis. But we want to shift it. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to shift into what we call a coach state. So other than the fact that coach is also an acronym, being in a coach state it means that you're in a state where you can tap into your resources, into your values, into what works for you, into your strategies. That is what a coach state is really about. So let's talk about that shift. And that shift, as I talk about the shift, I want you to notice that I'm also giving you a lot of tools here and a lot of tips. So the C stands for centered. Okay, centered means we're going back to our center of who we are, what we know to be absolutely true about our lives, about our abilities, about who we are, about the world. In a state of crisis, in a crash state, in order to center ourselves, we don't go to our mind. We go immediately to our body. So this is how you center yourself. First of all, you take your shoes off so you can feel the floor. Remember, we're going to use our senses now. We're going to tap into the intelligence of the body because the body holds a lot of intelligence. And by the way, that is connected to emotional intelligence as well. So take off your shoes, okay? Feel the floor. You want to start breathing and you want to send that breath down to your abdomen, okay? So imagine you have a balloon in your lower abdomen, a little bit below your belly button or your navel, okay? And as you're inhaling, you're sending the air and into that balloon, okay? And you will see that as you're breathing like that, your lower abdomen is going to start moving. You can also put your hand there, okay? And just practice that. Instead of expanding this part of your chest, what we're doing is we're expanding the lower abdomen. Physiologically, what that means is that we are inhaling more air into our lungs, because in states of a crisis, usually our breathing becomes very shallow and then we use about 1/3 of our lung capacity. So as we're breathing this abdominal breath, okay, basically we're using our entire lung capacity. This means two things. One is that we have more oxygen in the blood. More oxygen in the blood, our neurological function improves significantly because there's more oxygen going to the brain. The other thing is that when we use the entire capacity of our lungs, our diaphragm starts moving. So the diaphragm is that muscle that separates the lung and all our internal abdominal organs. That muscle is absolutely crucial and it needs to stay flexible and strong. As we're breathing like that, we are moving. We are moving the diaphragm, and the diaphragm is massaging all the internal organs, which helps them function. So we need that strong diaphragm in order to massage our intestines so they work better. So we talked about breathing, hands on the floor and feet on the floor. Sorry, you can put your hands on the floor as well, but start rubbing your hands, okay? Create that nerve stimulation. And you want to start looking around you. So we're going to use our senses to bring our attention to the here and now. Because one of the characteristics of imbalanced emotional states is that our attention goes out to this unknown thing in the future, and oh my God, and we want to bring the attention back to the body. And the way that we do it is through our senses. So look around you and find something to count. You can count pictures on the wall. You can look out the window. I have a window here, okay? And count the trees that you see and the people that go by. Doesn't matter what you count, okay? But you want, through counting, you bring your neurology back to the here and now. You want to listen for voices. So right now you're hearing me, my voice. Do I have a specific accent? Okay. Does my voice sound nice? Am I too loud? Am I too low? Okay, maybe there are other voices. Maybe you can hear the humming of an air conditioner. Notice that. Then you want to take your attention to the body. Okay, take your attention to the body. Is there something that feels uncomfortable? Take your attention to the feet. How does the floor feel like? What's the temperature? Are you feeling a carpet? Are you feeling, another kind of texture? So we're using our body to get centered. There's a lot of content online, free content online on centering techniques. I recommend that you just Google it and enjoy them. Open means we become open to what else is around us. Who else is around us? Who can help us? Okay, so we want to use our eyes and start looking around, but also start expanding our awareness by asking ourselves, what else? What else? What else am I noticing? Who else is here? What else is possible? As we do that, we start expanding our awareness. And as we expand our external awareness, our awareness to everything that's outside of us, our awareness is going to increase to everything that is inside of us. Our inner resources, our values, our beliefs, our experience. Okay? All the strategies that we already have. The C stands for connected. What am I connected to? Who do I want to connect to or connect with? Okay? I can connect to my values. I can connect to a really pleasant memory where I felt loved and I felt seen and I felt empowered and I felt strong. But I can also connect to someone else that sees me. So create consciously looking for something to connect to or connect with. And the H stands for holding the space. So imagine that you're cradling. I want you to, bring your hands like this in front of you in this cradling motion. And the thing that you're going to be cradling is you. So you're just going to hold a space for yourself right now as you are, imperfect, wonderful, and amazing as you are right now. Okay? You're going to hold a space as if you're cradling yourself, and you're going to bring a lot of compassion because you are just perfect as you are right now. And remember, you're having emotions. You're not your emotions. You're having a crisis. You're going through a crisis. You are not your crisis. You have an illness. You are not your illness. You're not your symptoms. You're not your pain. You're not everything that happened to you. You're a beautiful human being. And right now, you're going through something. And you need to be held with compassion. You need to be seen, and you need to be acknowledged. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to give that to yourself by holding a space, a safe, compassionate space for yourself. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. And I really hope all of these tools helped. There's a lot more that you can find on emotional agility that will lead you, help you connect to that emotional intelligence. And remember, this is a skill. We are born with the ability to tap into our emotional intelligence. We are born with our ability to do emotional agility. So it's a skill, and it's also an ability. And the more we use the skill, the more you use the emotional agility tools, the more you connect to your emotional intelligence and use it, the more it becomes second nature. And then you will find yourself in a situation where you might be going through a crisis, health, medical, or any other. And like second nature, you can tap into your emotional intelligence. You can use those emotional agility tools and skills and create a shift. Start creating that shift in no time. And that's what I wish for you. So thank you very much, and be well.
Well, thank you so much, Shiri. That was brilliant. And it always, excites me to talk to you because you have such a passion for what you do. And we need more of that around the world. So let's give her some love in the comments. And I'm sure that each and every one of you took something away from that you can definitely use in your life right now. All right. So it's time for another break. And then we'll have a few announcements and things. We'll come back with our next speaker. So make sure that you get a stretch, that you get a drink, you go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do, and you come back ready to go for our next speaker. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll see you then.